Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of Tai'Shar, Manetheren, A Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Will.
I'm Sam.
We're here in the Lord of Chaos once again, trudging on into chapter 26. Sam, why don't you take it away?
Chapter 26, Connecting Lines. And, once again, I just think of Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, with connecting lines.
It's all connected.
It is, everything. Rand is in the saddle outside of Camelin. He's observing the Saldean horsemen practicing their riding stunts or something. They're like getting out of the saddle, crawling underneath galloping horses, leaning out to like slap the ground and jumping off and run next to their horses and that sort of thing. I just think of like the Harlem Globetrotters with horses. I don't know. So his ideal. Exactly. See that they need a marching band with them. His ideal guard today is mountain dancers or Hama Andor. Half wear the Siswayaman headband, though none will admit it, which is
what headband? What headband are you talking about?
What are you talking about? Rand senses Alana off in the distance, and he knows she's mad because she bruised her heel and scraped her hand. At times it's a little nebulous exactly what gets passed through the warder bond.
Right.
Not thoughts exactly, emotions, yes, but obviously more than just emotions. It's
right.
It's very confusing. I talk about using something sort of like compulsion on their warders, but it seems to involve channeling. So it's got to be something like compulsion, but it's specific to warders. But I wouldn't have thought Rand would know exactly why Alana was mad. It seems a little more specific than what I would have expected. I just would have thought he would think she was peeved and not know why.
Right.
Anyway, he's not interested in what's going on with her. The bond is like a little annoying gnat in the back of his head, and he just, it's like we said, is getting crowded in his head between Lews Therin and Alana now. Rand also realizes that he hasn't seen Sulin since they returned from Shadar Logoth 8 days prior. Just kind of notes that to himself. Dira Bashir rides up, and you can tell pretty quick where Fail kind of gets her personality, her sunny disposition. Rand might be the Dragon Reborn, but this is a dragon lady, if ever there was one. That's the Webster definition, not the Urban Dictionary for anyone Googling. It's not a racial slur. It's just like a powerful older woman who's very imposing. If you haven't heard it. So Dira asks Rand if her husband and his army are amusing him, because he's laughing to himself about God knows what. Rand tells her that to tell Bashir he is pleased. Then he leaves without so much as a thank you, and by your leave, milady, causes Lews Therin to giggle, which is not something that happens very often, and tell Rand, or, kind of mutter to himself, that a woman will kill you for no reason and then weep for you after. Rand is really starting to worry that the voice is an indication that he is going mad.
You think?
Fair point. Yeah, that does seem pretty likely at this point, my man. You should
also
check that out.
It makes those kinds of comments make me wonder about Jordan's relationship with Harriet at times when it's
if he's just like taking out his
right
up aggression on the page.
Yeah, if it was just like they had a fight just earlier that day or something,
it's subconsciously like coming out, kind of like writing about cheeseburgers and fries. Yeah,
I think he's been quoted as saying that all the women in Wheel of Time are in some way based off of Harriet, which I feel like is not always a compliment.
No. Jordan, did you wish that Harriet was 3 women? Oh, man. Rand rides into town. Then some dark friends try to kill him with crossbows from a roof. This is like our closest we've gotten lately to a sudden dark friend Trolloc attack. We haven't really gotten any sudden Trolloc attacks.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, the bubble of evil kind of starts to replace that more and more.
And like the one we got was Teleron Riyadh, and that doesn't really count because it was nightmares. It was like larger than life Trollocs. It wasn't really a true blue Trolloc attack. I want a one-on-one Myrddraal battle. We don't get enough of those this book.
Exactly.
So Rand seizes Sidene just in time to stop a crossbow bolt in midair, Jedi style, just in front of his face. He responds with a fireball, chars that dude, and he falls off of the roof. But then someone tackles Rand from behind, and he finds that it is Disora, one of his maiden guards, who has taken a crossbow bolt for him and died. Just dies as she's tackling him. The Aiel do manage to capture 4 more of the attackers, and there's killed a few more. and show Rand that one of their cloaks is a white cloak, the Golden Sunburst.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, Rand tells them to hang 3 and let one go, and tells the lucky one to go tell Pedro Nile that Rand's gonna hang him too one day for what happened here. And we don't really get any more detail about what's really going on with that. Maiden moves to cover Desora's face with her veil, and Rand stops her and kind of takes a moment to study Desora's face and commit it to memory. He wants to add her name to the list of women who have died for him, and he realizes belatedly that Olenna is on the list already, no doubt put there by Lews Therin. Rand doesn't mind.
I picture like inside Rand's head, you have like Rand al'Thor, the sheep herder standing there, along with like Lews Therin standing there, and then like a little wisp of Alana, yeah. And there's like a big whiteboard with.
Right. I'm imagining like them watching a movie screen and the credits are rolling,
Yeah, and they're just like keeping the whiteboard, and that Lews Therin has just gone over and just like just written in
right
Elena's name and a few others in there, and that's just like, hey, here, this is in here. It's like, dude, this is my board. All right.
It's your own board. And he's also just like writing nonsense in the corner because he's also insane.
Right.
So, it's very strange the way these things like the interactions between Rand and Lews Therin in this book get more and more wacky.
Right.
He says there's no men on the list because let the dead rest and care for the living is a saying he's heard. And he just kind of thinks that men died, that it's part of their duty in the line of fire, but he just can never have that mindset for women, even the Maidens of the Spear. He kind of like every one of them that dies, he feels personally responsible.
And I may have brought this up in another episode, and even if so, I think it bears repeating still. This directly comes from Robert Jordan's experience in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And which I just think is interesting. I mean, because I think some people could look at it as, kind of having this white knight sexist kind of attitude. But this is really something I feel like
how he felt.
Right. Yeah. It was deep inside of him, where after a firefight realized that one of the soldiers he had killed or whatever was a woman, and it really haunted him personally.
And I think it's impossible when you're writing characters like Rand and Mat and Perrin for there not to be a little element of Marty Stew in there. Like, you just can't avoid it. Like, of course, these characters are not literally Robert Jordan. You didn't think of them that way. But like you said, if he feels something that strongly, it makes sense that the attitude of the character is going to reflect that to some degree. Could see that. It's fair. There's other casualties that have died in the attack that are not Aiel, an older woman, in fact. So Rand asks Nandera to find the dead woman's family and give them money, whatever they need, and then find out her name so that he can add it to the list as well. So after this happens, the Rand gets on his horse and gallops away from his Aiel guards. Right after he's been ambushed, real smooth. He's just like wants to get away, and so this goes over about as well as you would think with the Aiel. Come on, man, what are you doing? And it gets back to the fact that just like Egwene and Elaine, dude is not that old. He's still, I don't know, maybe 18, 19, something like that. He's a kid.
I think we said it was about 20 because in the previous book, Moraine made a statement about 20 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking 18 because I know Egwene at one point in this book says she's 18. And so I guess she's a year or two younger than him. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that was right. So, but yeah.
Thinking about when I was 20 and all of the many, many dumb things I did.
Right.
It does not surprise me at all that Rand would gallop away from his guards after being ambushed.
Yeah.
So when he gets back to the palace, Mistress Harfor tells him that the Wave Mistress from Clan Catalar of the Sea Folk wants to see him. And we get a brief description of Renee Harfor. She's a formidable woman who's not exactly a maid or a servant in the palace, kind of like Halwyn Nori. She sees it as her duty to defend Caemlyn and the palace from invaders. And so she ostensibly reports to Rand and does what he says, but she also really makes it known how she feels about things too, in a sort of indirect way. And so Rand tells her that he'll see the Sea Folk lady this afternoon, and you can tell she's like, you need to see this person. This is important. But hey, it's been a rough morning, after all. He kind of he doesn't want to sit at any meetings right now. Just figure my afternoon. Let's just take the time. But not that he mentions the fact that he was attacked by dark friends to Renee Harfor. But then when she leaves, Calden of the Mountain Dancers says a crafty enemy will often set a second ambush when you aren't expecting. And Nandera puts in that young men can be impetuous and fools, but the Karakarn cannot let himself be a young man. So Rand ignores both comments and says, all right, we're back at the palace. Choose your 2 guards instead of their whole retinue. So, of course, they choose themselves. No surprise there, and continue to be displeased. Elena knocks and enters his apartments. And so Jordan describes her as honey-haired and fox-like. Fox-like, I like that. That's good. Rand has called her to educate him about Anders' history, and she wants to take the opportunity, really, to explain to him why she has the strongest claim to the Lion Throne. But she's not going to get to. Can I just say, I kept reading these scenes expecting one to be the scene. Mm-hmm. You know the one I'm talking about. The one that it ends up coming a fair bit later, though. And I don't know. I think it's there's a lot of detail focused on the plum punch that they drink. And I just kept thinking like, oh, it's going to be like drugged and he's going to pass out. I just couldn't. It's been so long since I read this book. I couldn't remember the circumstances surrounding the scene. So,
right.
Anyway, we'll get to it. Maybe Jordan was thirsty when he wrote this scene, though, because there's a lot of detail about the plum punch. So Rand asks Elena to tell him about how Surin Maravale came to bring his wife to Camelin, who's Surin Maravale is the... she tells him that Ishara brought Surin, and Ishara's mother was Indara Castellane, who was Arthur Hawkwing's governor in Andor. And even at that point in history, the province was called Andor. And after Hawkwing died, every Tom, Dick, and Harry wanted to become the High King or Queen in his place. But Ishara, who in Andor, realized that was too ambitious. Nobody was going to be able to do that. So she, unlike the other nobles on the continent, decided to consolidate power in Camelin. And Surin, who is the general, had been besieging Tar Valon at the time. So she convinced him to stop and convinced and promised the Aes Sedai that her eldest daughter would be sent to the tower and took an Aes Sedai advisor. So she was the first ruler to do that. And that's the reason why Andor and Tar Valon have such a strong relationship to the present. And it took a generation for nobles to sort of give up the idea of becoming the next Hawkwing, which is kind of a interesting little segue. Side note. Yeah. So Rand asks why there's no House Maravale, and Elena says none of Ishara's sons lived past 20, but claims to the throne do require some familiar connection to the Sauron and Ishara line. This does prick up Rand's ears. He wants to know all about how the noble families in Andor are related. So Elena tells him that Tigraine and Morghese were cousins. Rand responds by turning up his wine goblet. Did not want to hear that they're cousins. So he says, hold on, you're all cousins? Break this down for a second. Let's pretend they were farmers instead of royalty. Would they be considered cousins then? And so this Elena's like, well, no, if they were farmers, they wouldn't be considered related at all. So Rand just kind of, this is what we were talking about a couple of episodes ago. Rand is like, oh, thank God. Okay. So then he's like, all right, you've told me everything I want to hear. Just get out of here. So she squeaks and leaves and talks to himself for a moment, or maybe to Luce Theron, and says, you're worse than a lecher. You're a fool. Yeah, well, hard to disagree with you there, champ. I mean, my goodness, Taviran or not, pattern weaving or not, that's, I
just think of the moment in Scott Pilgrim versus the World when his roommate comes in, Wallace comes in and says, you're thinking of juggling 2 chicks, and he passes out. Then his sister immediately calls him and says, you're thinking of juggling 2 chicks? And
excellent film.
It was like, who told you? Wallace, duh. And he's like, he's unconscious, and it shows his phone. He just texted her
send out a mass text about this. Oh, gosh.
That's what it makes me think of. It's like Luce Theron in the back of his head. I was like, you're thinking of juggling 2 chicks?
Good luck with that. So on that note, he tells Andera and Calden he's going to Cairhien, and please don't tell Avienda because he's trying to avoid her. So, chapter 27, Gifts. Egwene is walking back to the Aiel tents after spending the morning at an inn with Gawain. She was absolutely brazen kissing him as soon as the doors closed, even sitting on his knee once. That's all fine and good, Egg, old gal. Just please stay away from his dreams from now on, and we'll all be grateful. So he had found her, and he was in disguise, and asked her to go to the inn, the Long Man, with him. Weird name for an inn.
Yeah.
She gets real huffy after he asked that. I mean, okay, I get that. But really, he just wanted to get out of sight because the Aes Sedai say they're looking for someone like Egwene, and doesn't want her to get caught. I mean, I'm sure that's not the only reason, but sure, I'm sure if you walk up to a woman and say, "Let's go to an inn together," probably get a strange response generally.
Sure, he was just wanting to write a book report or something.
Exactly.
I don't know.
So back at the tent, Soralea's apprentice named Saranda tells Egwene that the Wise Ones have given the apprentices the day off because they're meeting. And Egwene asks what they're meeting about, and Saranda says, "Your sisters, of course." Egwene says they should send Soralea to talk to the Aes Sedai, and Rand is back in town planning to meet with the Aes Sedai this afternoon. She finds out. Egwene kind of wonders to herself how Rand is going back and forth between Caemlyn and Cairhien and Tyr. Saranda says he is a man, but Astaire, another apprentice, says he is the Karakarn with reverence. Hey, another character we meet and then never see again. Has 4 sentences in the wiki. Anyway, sparks an argument amongst all of them about how to deal with Rand, or any clan chief for that matter. Egwene ignores them, thinking that surely Rand's not going to do anything foolish in the presence of these Aes Sedai. But she is almost downright prophetic here. He thought he had friends, even followers in the tower. She did not. 3 oaths or no 3 oaths, she was convinced Elaida and Alviarin had worked up that second letter between them with its talk of kneeling in his radiance. It was all a ploy to get him into the tower. Prophetic.
Well, yeah. You're not wrong.
Indeed. Egwene tells the apprentices that she's got to go, heads out of the camp, and goes toward the Sun Palace. And gets in via a servant's door. She finds a servant, a round little man, and asks him where Rand is. He's like, in his chambers, I guess, and then kind of tries to leave. And she's like, no, you will take me there now. So there's a big Aiel she doesn't know guarding the door, but also Samara, who she does know. And Samara says, let her pass, Marie. She thinks Egwene must have been sent by the Wise Ones with a message for Rand. Wait, hold up. That dude's name is Marie? Sounds like a boy named Sue. Sure enough, his name is Murray. I mean, he's a big old Aiel dude named Murray. Egwene asks Samara, please don't tell the Aes Sedai about her. Samara says that the worst bad blood is between first sisters, and they will not hear Egwene's name from her mouth. And if Marie's tongue flaps, she will tie a knot in it. Man, I would have a chip on my shoulder if my name was Marie. But he just smiles looking at her. So Egwene goes in, and Rand is sitting on a chair, his usual douchebag look, sitting on a chair with a scowl on his face. He's probably talking to Lews Therin in his head or something. And Egwene thinks he looked like a king and one about to do murder.
This is one of these little wording things that Jordan does, and I've actually noticed Sanderson does it too in his own books. But the phrasing "do murder," I mean, obviously that that works, but I just think it's just odd to me because I think of commit murder.
I was just thinking the same thing. Yep.
Yeah, and and especially they've done murder. I don't know, something about that sounds so much like less climactic, less dangerous than hey, they did murder, like
yeah, they murdered out there, man.
I don't know. There's something about that phrasing that's just funny to me. I mean, I understand it's perfectly legitimate, but
I get it. No, that's a good point. As a way of saying hello, Egwene says, Samara says you should wash your ears. And this cheers Rand up a bit, and he shows her a mirror, and her face is caked in mud from the dust in the street. So you got to figure it's like a Dust Bowl situation out there. Grapes of wrath with a side of demonic murder. Until the bowl of winds is found. Egwene tells Rand the Aes Sedai are dangerous. Rand says, yeah, but they're only sending 3. And he seems to be talking to himself and says, yes, I can handle 3 if they aren't too strong. Egwene sort of ignores that he's talking to himself and says, really, you should send them away no matter what they've said. Rand's like, well, of course I don't trust them, but I want to use them and they want to use me. And, we'll see what happens here. But so Egwene says, even a king should listen to Aes Sedai and will listen with respect, even if he doesn't agree with them. So it wouldn't be hurt to be nice. And Rand sighs and says, maybe you have a point. I'll try to be humble as a mouse. And she's like, well, thinking, wait a minute. No, don't do that. But she doesn't want to take it back. She tells him there's a sea folk vessel in the river. Yet another wave mistress who's looking for him. Rand says, I have enough women angry with me at the moment. And he starts to ask Egwene if she's okay with Barrelane. But then Samara pokes her head in and says, the Aes Sedai are here. So Egwene's like, oh, okay, I got to get out of here. And Rand is over there kind of busily talking to Lews Therin because that's what he does these days, which is worrisome to Egwene, as it should be. He sort of shakes himself from his reverie and orders her to stand next to the dais, channels, and says, look in the mirror. She's invisible. Better than hiding under the bed, he says. And maybe she can give him some advice as he meets with these Aes Sedai. Coirin walks in with Nessun and another Aes Sedai Jordan describes as a pretty round-faced woman with a plump, demanding mouth. Galina. Egwene wishes she is in the universe of the video games, that Aes Sedai would always wear the color of their Aja. She does say, wishes she knew the color of their Aja. All three have embraced Saidar and are linked, Egwene notices. Rand does too. He tells them to release the source, and after a tense moment, foreshadowing, they give in. Coirin introduces them and says, we bring an invitation from the Amerlin to accompany us to the White Tower. And here's lots of gold. So Rand uses the power to slam the chest full of gold shut. And he says, look, I would love to go to the tower, but I just got other stuff to do for a while. So it'll just be a little while. So, y'all just sit tight. Coirin, of course, doesn't care for this answer.
By this time, I think all of us are just a little excited for any Aes Sedai, regardless of whether it's the Tower or even the Saladar folks, to get somebody that just says nope to them.
Yeah,
that because they're so used to always getting their way.
World,
yeah, and yeah, who run the world? Aes Sedai doesn't really work as well.
That's true.
There's something satisfying about the look. Yeah, I would love to, but
it's just not gonna happen right now.
Yeah, I gotta go.
I got some stuff. I got a lot of errands to run. I just got buried in paperwork at the moment.
I gotta get my horse waxed and.
Yeah. So Coirin offers to leave an advisor with Rand, and he's like, I don't want one of you to take a spear through the ribs by accident, So as they leave, Rand asks, how's Alviarin? And Galina says, she is well, accidentally, not really meaning to. So they leave. Egwene asks Rand, what are you doing, man? So Rand's like, I bet Galina is one of Alviarin's friends. And Egwene says, she's got to be red, Aja. And Rand's like, well, Aes Sedai are going to have to follow me into the last battle, including the Reds. Egwene's like, please tell me you aren't considering going with them. Rand says, we got to figure out how to get you back to the tents without them finding out you were here. So maybe via a laundry basket. That's his response. So Egwene really wants to know how Rand travels. So she's like, how do you do that? How do you open a gateway? So he says he pokes a hole in the pattern. He takes a piece of cloth, I think her veil or something, and kind of puts his finger against the two pieces together. She asks, well, is there any sense of making things the same? Is her question. And he says that sounds like changing the weave of the pattern, and it would tear him apart if he tried. Yet another thing men do differently for women. It sure seems. So then Rand starts muttering to Lews Therin again. So Egwene's like, all right, I gotta get out of here. Quick switch to Nessun. Nessune? I can't remember. In a carriage from the Sun Palace, Coirin says that, I didn't know, Galina, you were friendly with Alviarin. Galina sniffs and says, well, we don't have to be friends to know she's still breathing. And how did Rand know we were channeling? No, he had to be guessing. Coirin says if he was guessing, he could make a fortune at the fair. Safer to assume he had it figured out. So Nessun wonders aloud who the sister was who shared their meeting with Rand. And the other two look surprised, like, what are you talking about? Since they couldn't see Egwene, they didn't sense her, apparently. Nesuna did, and at least her strength and the power. So Galina thinks it's confirmation that Moraine is still alive. Quite an intellectual leap there, G. Coirin sets her straight. It may be this mysterious green. So Nesuna sighs and thinks the paper she will write about Rand will be the culmination of her life. Back to Rand in chapter 28, Letters. is sure Lews Therin is there, not just a voice in a madman's head. So consequently, he can't really focus on anything else. He's really wanting to know if he's crazy or if there's actually somebody in his head. Berlin and Ruark are kind of tired of tired of him sort of badgering them. He's like chasing him around. Even Ruark is getting kind of a hunted look of like, leave me alone, man. Imagining this burly Aiel man, like, geez, dude, leave me alone. But Rand is almost afraid to fall asleep because he's afraid that Lews Therin will see Saidin while his guard's down. But he does fall asleep. When he gets up, he shatters his mirror while shaving because he realizes he's been dreaming about running away with Elaine and Avienda and his love for them.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. So when he comes out of his apartment, Berlain's servant hands him a letter from the Sea Folk. Rand just stuffs it in his pocket and weaves a gateway to Caemlyn. Never does getting around to meeting them in this book somehow. His schedule's too full. He needs a good secretary. That's his problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting that it's still night in Caemlyn. So it really kind of goes to show how far apart Caemlyn and Cairhien are. They're in different time zones, I suppose. Maybe more than different time zones. A couple of time zones to be light in one and dark in the other. Still night. So Rand weaves a globe of fire and air to illuminate his way to the throne room. Avienda stalks out of his apartment with bed hair, knife in hand, naked. She sees him and kind of stalks back the way she came.
Why not?
You're right. Rand says he will never understand Aiel. Nandera says, no, you do not understand women. Jelani, who is apparently very young, says men are very simple and then blushes. Because she's too young to understand, to know, to be able to make such statements. Therin interrupts this humorous interlude by saying, death comes. What, do you have like a spidey sense now? Gosh, what in the world? Avienda walks back out, clothed this time, and asks if he's okay, because I'm sure he doesn't look okay, because he's got Lews Therin jabbering away in his head.
Mm-hmm. Break the seals, break the seals, break the seals, break the seals.
Indeed. Avienda says, you better tell me the next time you go somewhere, and tells Nandera to let her know whenever he leaves. And Rand's like, no, don't tell her that. But Gito, it's going to happen. Just let it happen, bro. Mistress Harfor shows up and says there's a bunch of nobles who've taken rooms in the city, which Rand thinks is good news. She hands Rand another letter from the Sea Folk, this one from the Wave Mistress in Caemlyn. This reminds him of the first letter, so why not? Let's open both of them. Both are from Wave Mistresses, and both need to meet with him pronto. He would probably send a response, but gets very distracted by the sight of Sulin in a dress, delivering yet another letter. This is a bit of a dumb bit for the rest of this book, but the payoff is worth it, I think, at the end of this book. I mean, just Sulin constantly being in a dress and being angry and being a terrible servant. It's like, okay. But the end is worth it, I think.
There was somebody we went to high school with. I don't think you ever met her. That she was just in like one of my classes. That I remember seeing her at some event where she was suddenly wearing a dress, and she just looked like an entirely different person.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And she was kind of, we'll say she had an Aiel like disposition. And
yeah.
And I remember like came up to her and I was like, I'm sorry, have we met? But anyway, it makes me think of this.
Sure. Kind of like men when anytime she gets dressed up and
right. Yeah.
So Rand's kind of like, what is happening here? And Sulin storms off. Nandera tells him Sulin is meeting her toe and it does not concern him. So Rand remembers before they went to Shadar Logoth, Nandera accused Sulin of speaking to Gaishain as Fardaris Mai. And Sulin at the time admitted that it happened and it said they would deal with it later. And so apparently reminding a Gaishain of who they were before they took on the White is a big no-no and very shaming. So Sulin is meeting her toe by accepting greater shame. So Rand says to Nandera, it's my fault, which Nandera replies to Avienda, if you would stop daydreaming about his eyebrows, you would teach him better. Eyebrows? What? I guess Avienda's thing is eyebrows. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
nicely arched brow. Okay.
In one way, that's not all that different from the well-turned calf. I guess I don't know.
Right. Yep, I agree.
This is kind of bizarrely off topic, but I just watched the first episode of the movies that made us. It was on Dirty Dancing.
I watched that episode.
Yeah, and the lady who wrote it was talking about how she was looking for a guy with hooded eyes to play Johnny. That's what this makes me think of. I don't know if I've ever thought of that, hooded eyes.
Maybe she would have been into eyebrows too. That's great.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe Patrick Swayze in another life should have played Rand. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Rand asks if he has toe to Sulin, but apparently it's even worse to ask if you have toe. You're supposed to just know, and like even in the Aiel culture, even children like know. You know, it's just something that you know. So it's just proof that he's not Aiel. He's a Wetlander. Karakarn. Then Rand remembers the letter Sulin handed him and opens it, and it is from Alejandra, the Queen of Gildan. And Rand's happy because it's the first time a ruler has approached him without him having an army at their doorstep. So he's kind of like, yay, we're getting somewhere without having to conquer everybody. Doesn't have time to bask in that too long, though, because the door opens and Rand smells something stinky, something filthy. Then he realizes it's a gray man. I guess this gray man wasn't bathing. I mean, it's like the taint of the gray man.
Whatever. You know, if nobody's noticing you, I could kind of see being like, I'm not going to shower. Like,
especially if you've sold your soul to the devil. I mean, who cares at that point?
I think this is why a lot of single guys end up neglecting their hygiene. It's like, hey, I'm basically invisible.
I'm just gonna double down.
You're right.
It's a way to distinguish myself with my odor. So Rand shoves Avienda away from him, and she kind of like falls on her butt, like in just all in slow motion, just like palm to the chest, shove away, and the gray man lunges at him with a knife. Rand wraps him up contemptuously in flows of air, but then a column of fire shoots over Rand's shoulder and chars the gray man to cinders. Here's time. So Rand spins around and is like, what the heck, man? I had him. Why'd you blast him? And also, why are you sneaking around in my bedroom? Taim is like, I reacted without thinking. And it was too late to stop when I saw you had him. Just trigger happy. So Lews Therin, of course, thinks I must kill him and tries real hard to wrest Saidin away from Rand. Rand does manage to fend him off and was like, why? Why do you want to kill him? And Lews Therin responds by laughing and crying. So Rand asks Taim, if you're so trigger happy, why don't you suggest we go after Samael with a gateway? You know, maybe take a couple of Ashaman with us or whatever. Taim says, if it were up to me, I would have, if I were Samael, I would have Ilian covered in wards so that if another man channels any bear in there, he's just going to die on the spot. And then, you know, but he's like, but enough about that. My whole point in coming here was to tell you about Jahar Narishma, who is the first kid he's found who has the spark. And he's really excited about that. So he tells Rand, come back to the school, see the changes. Come with me, and I'll show you. All right, you've delivered your news. Go on, get. So Taim's dark eyes glittered. Then he bows, weaves a gateway, and gets. So Rand goes out to Nandera and Jelani and says, I don't want anyone to know about the gray man or Taim being in there. And they are grateful because, even though no one can be expected to see a gray man, they still feel like they failed him. So they say, well, I have toe to you for kind of keeping this quiet. So Avienda then gives him a nice long lecture on Jito, and he just sits there enjoying looking at her, even though he tries not to. And then we get this frankly bizarre little scene with Padan Fein. Oh, man, this is like a disturbing, strange little scene. And he's sitting there torturing her Mirdrawl, who's just sitting in a chair. He's staying at a dark friend's house with her and her kid, and the kid bursts into the room to tell Fein that someone has tried and failed to kill the Dragon Reborn. And this is the wrong thing to say to Fein. And so he's like, Althor's mine. So he brushes a hand across the kid's face and does something awful to him. He's like going to die or be insane or something. We don't really know. Fein doesn't even know what he's done, only that he can't undo it. It's something, to do with the taint of the Dark One and with Mashadar.
Mashadar, yeah.
He's done something to him. So the Dark Friend woman is like pleading with him to stop doing whatever he's doing. So then he tries to seduce her, and of course she's freaking out and resists. So he thinks he's going to have to hurt her, and it's all Rand's fault. This is why you don't become a Dark Friend, kids.
I couldn't imagine like Padan Fein would be the best house guest. He probably leaves dishes in the sink, and doesn't. dead Murdral after torture. It's just like
just does not clean up after himself. Dirty socks and dead Murdral. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, who's going to clean up this Murdral?
Exactly. So that's really the end of the chapter and
also the end of an episode for us,
coincidentally enough.
Okay, all right, well, in that case, we're wrapping up here. Be sure to contact us at tsmpodcast.com. You can go fill out our form and say hello. If you have feedback for us or anything, you can always just let us know. Be sure to follow us on all the socials. Those are Podcast TSM on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also find us on YouTube. Go and subscribe there. We don't have a lot of followers yet, but if we get enough, then we could get our own vanity URL. I don't know. It's just another way to get it out there, share it around, whatever. And wherever you get your podcast, go on, give us a rating and say hello. And guys, we love hearing from you. So however you reach out, if you can tell us maybe we screwed something up, correct us, give us feedback. We always love hearing from folks. So thanks for listening. And until next time, Tai'Shar Manethrin.
Heck yeah.